He's the most intense, relentless, and savage player to ever roam the court. That tenacity played a big role in Gary Payton being known as one of the greatest defenders and point guards in league history. That killer mentality didn't just give problems to his opponents, but also his teammates. This video won't just bring up some of the incidents he had with his teammates or some of the harsh words they said about him. We will also uncover his background, why he conducted himself the way he did, and we'll see what he had to say about his up and down relationships with his teammates. It's common for players to be very protective of their teammates. After going to war for each other for years, there's a family-like bond. Even if they do bump heads, they're careful enough voicing their frustrations publicly. But many of Gary's ex-teammates don't hold anything back in expressing exactly how they thought about him. It's something we rarely see. For example, during the 1999/2000 season, there was a player who requested to be anonymous, said this humorous remark to ESPN the magazine, quote, "I hope he doesn't die because no one would go to his funeral," end of quote. He might have been half joking, but the other side was a serious feeling many of his teammates had. There's no doubt that they respected his talents and recognized his greatness, but it seems like they dreaded playing with the person behind all that talent. His toughness and intensity are what made him special, but there were times he took it too far. The most notable example came during a practice that occurred in the 1999/2000 season. He ended up hitting rookie Shaman Williams in the face. According to Vernon Maxwell, there was blood everywhere, coming through his fingers and all over the floor. This did not sit too well with him. If you know anything about Mad Max, you know that he's not the guy that you want to mess with. He gave him a warning that he needed to back off, but things took an even darker turn. Gary tripped Maxwell after driving to the basket, and that started an all-out brawl. Punches were thrown, and Vernon had the Sonics franchise player on the floor. Things got so heated that the brawl extended to the locker room. One of their veterans, Horace Grant, was trying his best to keep the peace, but he became collateral damage. He was accidentally hit by a 5-pound dumbbell and injured his shoulder. He was out for the next 2 weeks. Around that same time, there were some disturbing threats that he would make to his teammates. There was Jelani McCoy, who played for Seattle from the 1999 lockout season to 2001. He was their backup center. There came a time where he had enough of his antics and was ready to throw hands. Gary knew he didn't have the size to win this fight. So Jelani recounted a certain threat he screamed at him. Gary said, "I'm going to have my boys come to town and bleep you up. You best hide." Little did he know that Jelani was from the same area he was from. He told him that he knew all the people he would always bring up, and he knew they weren't going to do anything. He mentioned to writer Jeff Pearlman that Gary ruined teammates on purpose, that he tried to keep a certain image. A big part of his image was his roots, the place where he came from. That was East Oakland, California. When talking about his upbringing, he has mentioned that he knew all the drug dealers, that he would play with, quote, street dudes, and you couldn't be soft if you wanted to play with them. Although that might have shaped his personality somewhat, it was his father that helped him become one of the all-time greats. He wrote for the Players Tribune that everyone knew him as Mr. Mean. He later wrote this, quote, "A lot of people were scared of my father. We were scared of my father. I got good at talking trash for one reason, and one reason only. Because I saw my father do it so often in the streets. If somebody said something to him, he knocked them out. That was it. I seen it 100 times. And people learned not to repeat that mistake." End of quote. You can say that he was just following in the footsteps of his father. That is something that applies to nearly all of us. But it wasn't just the times he saw his dad play pickup ball that shaped his on-court personality. For years, playing in the Oakland Neighborhood Basketball League, his father was the one coaching his team. According to that Players Tribune article, those games got intense. So his father/coach gave those kids an ultimatum: either fight back or fight him. Those were their two options. He mentioned that this method worked. He had them playing hard because they were so scared of him. Those experiences surely played some part in his leadership style and the methods he would use to motivate his teammates and to get the best of them: intimidation and toughness. We have one example where I can see Gary trying to use the same motivational tactics his father used. That came in the 1994 first round series against the Denver Nuggets. The Sonics had the best record in the NBA. They won 21 more games than Denver. This was supposed to be a quick and easy series, but he saw their season slipping away after games 3 and 4. So what did he do to try to light a fire on his team? He grabbed a flamethrower and essentially gave them the same ultimatum: fight back or fight him, literally. George Karl told the New York Times back in 1996 that he was looking to take him on. Then he's trying to fight Sam Perkins. He threatened to pull out his gun on Ricky Pierce, and they were talking about killing each other's families. He described the locker room as a war zone. Gary mentioned in that article what his thought process was. Quote, "Everybody's looking at me like, damn, why is he going off? The reason I'm going off is because I saw the way we were playing and that we were going to get beat in the series." End of quote. It's one thing to light a fire on your team, and it's another to burn it down. Looking back now, it's no surprise that the Sonics ended up losing the series. They became the first team to lose in the first round as a number 1 seed. His worst nightmare came true. It was obvious that there was nothing more that he wanted than to win. You got that impression every time you saw him play. You can't argue with the results he had. During the 90s, the Sonics had 3 seasons where they won over 60 games. In 1996, he led his team to the finals. He had his troops ready. He ran that offense very efficiently. There wasn't a single point guard that was a better defender than he was. There was a method to his madness. However, it's fair to say that his outburst caused more damage than good at times. This isn't to say that Gary Payton is a bad person by any stretch of the imagination. He is extremely charitable. He has sent multiple kids from his community on scholarships. It's not surprising that his son, Gary Payton II, has followed his footsteps in that aspect. He was even presented the Bob Lanier Community Assist Award. Who do you think he got that from? And during the final stages of his career, he was the ultimate teammate for the Lakers and Heat. Was that a sign of remorse? Did he eventually feel regret for the way he handled things during his time with Seattle? He brought this subject up when he was selected to enter the Basketball Hall of Fame in 2013. This is what he said to the Seattle Times about his biggest regret of his NBA career. Quote, "The thing that I regret is not having better relationships with a lot of people. Being the hard-nosed guy that I was, I think I could have come off a little better in my relationships with a lot of people, but I didn't." End of quote. I think this says a lot about Gary Payton. He realized that he could have handled things better and even rectified this in the final stages of his career. I feel like his heart was in the right place as he wanted to get his troops ready for battle. He wanted to win. He wanted to give everything he had to the game. He expected his teammates to do the same. It was the execution that brought a lot of interesting stories and events. But what about you all? Are there any other Gary Payton stories that were mentioned here that you've heard of? Do you think this prevented the Sonics from winning, or did this help their chances? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching.